The corridors of St. Gloria Children's Hospital were filled with chaos. Nurses moved briskly between patients, the hum of machines echoing faintly in the background. A nurse leaned toward a young doctor, whispering, "She's been vomiting since midnight. Pulse keeps dropping. Looks like poisoning." The doctor frowned, scanning the monitor beside the bed. "Poisoning? From what?" On the bed lay Miss Lara, the elegant nursery teacher everyone in Surulere adored. Her face, once radiant with charm, was pale and drawn. Oxygen tubes framed her nostrils, her lips trembling as her chest heaved unevenly. A crowd had already gathered outside her ward. Parents, fellow teachers, even the school's headmistress, all murmuring in disbelief. They say Lagos hides its sins behind fine makeup and bright smiles. But for Miss Lara of Bright Steps Academy, what she stole with her stomach came back to destroy her from within. Days earlier, Bright Steps Academy had been full of laughter and music. The sun had barely climbed over Surulere, and children's voices filled the air with the alphabet song. Miss Lara stood before them, stylish as ever. A neat bun, gold earrings glinting under the ceiling fan, her nails perfectly done in red polish. "Good morning, my darlings," she sang, clapping her hands. The children echoed her cheerfully. "Good morning, Auntie Lara." To the parents, she was a gem. They said she had the patience of an angel. Her Instagram page was full of cheerful classroom clips, little hands painting, little mouths singing, her smile wide and effortless. But behind the filters and affection was hunger. Not the kind that food could satisfy, but the kind that fed on greed. When the bell rang for lunch, Miss Lara's heels clicked across the tiled floor as she strolled between tables. Ah, my babies, you know Lagos germs are stubborn. Let Auntie test your food first, she'd tease. The children giggled, believing her. She'd pick up a spoon of jollof, taste it, nod approvingly, then eat a little more. Some days, she finished half the plate. The children watched with trusting eyes, not realizing they'd be left hungry. Later in the day, when little stomachs rumbled, Miss Lara smiled sweetly. "You see, I saved you from germs," she'd say. And when parents asked why their children returned tired or cranky, Lara would laugh. Children of nowadays, they don't eat well even when you beg them." Among her pupils was Tommy, a quiet 5-year-old who loved to draw. She was one of Lara's favorites, not for her art, but for her mother's lunches, steamy rice, fresh chicken stew, and fried plantain that filled the room with aroma. That Friday afternoon, Tommy sat at her desk coloring a butterfly when her vision blurred. Her crayon slipped from her hand. The next thing she knew, the floor rushed up to meet her. Gasps filled the classroom. "Auntie!" Tommy fell down. Lara dropped her pen dramatically. "Oh my God! Somebody call the nurse." In the small clinic, Tommy blinked as she regained consciousness. Her small hands trembled. Lara leaned close, her sweet perfume masking the sourness in her tone. "If you tell anyone that I eat your food, no one will play with you again," she whispered. "Do you understand?" Tommy's eyes filled with tears. She nodded. Later that evening, Mrs. Kemi, Tommy's mother, noticed her daughter eating like she hadn't seen food all day. "But Tommy, didn't you eat at school?" Tommy hesitated, pushing rice into her mouth quickly. I did, Mommy." Mrs. Kemi frowned. "You finished all the chicken I packed?" "Yes, Ma." She stared at her daughter, knowing something was off. Tommy hated rice and beans, but she was suddenly finishing everything. No child changes overnight, Kemi thought. The next day she decided to test it. She packed rice and beans, the one thing Tommy detested, and a piece of fish. Here, she said, make sure you eat everything. That evening, Tommy ran into her arms proudly. Mommy, I finished it. Kemi's suspicion deepened. She crouched beside her daughter. Really? You finished rice and beans? Tommy nodded fast, avoiding her gaze. Something twisted in Kemi's chest. She kissed her daughter's forehead, but knew something was terribly wrong. The following morning, she requested a meeting with the headmistress, Mrs. Odua, a middle-aged woman who carried herself like a queen. Good morning, Ma, Kemi began carefully. I'm worried about something. I think Miss Lara might be. Before she could finish, Mrs. Odua raised her hand gently. Ah, Miss Lara, she smiled. She's one of our best. Parents love her. Maybe your child just doesn't eat well. You know how children can exaggerate. Kemi forced a smile, but left uneasy. That afternoon, in the teacher's lounge, Lara overheard two colleagues whispering, Did you hear? One parent complained about you. Her hand froze on her cup. She smiled faintly. People will always talk, she said, but her eyes hardened. The next day, her tone in class shifted. Gone was the cheerful Auntie Lara. No more noise during lunch, she snapped. If I hear a whisper, everyone will stand. Fear filled the air. The children ate silently, eyes darting nervously toward her. The following week, a new girl joined the class. Sarah, bright-eyed and always smiling. Her lunchbox colorful and full of delightful smells. Jollof, dodo, grilled fish, everything that made Miss Lara's mouth water. Her mother, Mrs. Uzo, spoke kindly to Lara at drop-off. Please, Miss Lara, make sure Zara eats her food herself. Her medicine is mixed in. She can't share. Please, it's for her heart condition. Lara smiled warmly. Ah, don't worry, Ma. I'll take care of her like she's mine. But as soon as she caught a whiff of Zara's food that afternoon, the familiar craving returned. Sharp, irresistible. Her conscience whispered a warning, but her greed spoke louder. If you're still watching, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because what happens next will leave you speechless. Lara returned to class the next morning with a forced smile, but her body already felt strange. The craving for Zara's lunch gnawed at her sharper than ever. When the children sat down and unpacked their meals, Lara's eyes flicked to Zara's colorful box. The scent of Yolof rice, golden dodo, and grilled fish made her stomach tighten. Zara's small voice broke through her thoughts. Good morning, Miss Lara. She set her plate carefully on the desk, glancing nervously at the teacher. Good morning, my dear, Lara replied, her voice deceptively gentle. Let me check your food. Lagos germs are tricky, you know. Zara hesitated. Ma, my mommy said I can't share. It's my medicine. It's for my heart. Please don't taste it. Lara's smile faltered for a heartbeat, but the familiar thrill overpowered it. Ah, are you talking back to me, Zara? Her tone sharpened. The children stiffened, eyes wide. With trembling hands, Zara handed over the plate. Lara's fingers closed around the edge, and the first bite slid into her mouth. Warm rice, spicy stew, sweet plantain. Everything Lara had ever craved, but never admitted. She took another bite, then another, each one feeding the hunger she could never satiate. Zara's tears welled up, and she whispered, Ma, please. But the greed had taken full control. Lara finished almost the entire plate before stepping back, her breath shallow. Very good, very clean, she said, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. The children exchanged glances, a mix of fear and disbelief. By evening, Lara's stomach churned violently. She pressed a hand to her abdomen, groaning. It's just suya from last night, she muttered. But the nausea didn't subside. Each wave of pain made her pulse race. The next morning, she forced herself to Bright Steps Academy, hiding her discomfort behind a practiced smile. By mid-morning, sweat glistened on her forehead. Her hands shook, and she gasped for air while explaining the alphabet. Children stared, whispering among themselves. Then, without warning, Lara collapsed. The class erupted into screams. Chairs toppled. Crayons scattered across the floor. "Auntie Lara!" Zara cried, rushing toward her teacher. "Call the nurse! Somebody call the doctor!" shouted another teacher. Teachers carried her out to the corridor, their faces pale. Ambulances had become a regular sight in Lagos for emergencies, but seeing their vibrant, confident teacher, now helpless on a stretcher, left everyone stunned. At St. Gloria Hospital, doctors ran tests frantically. The machines beeped, the IV dripped steadily, and Lara moaned softly as they worked. Her stomach throbbed, every pulse a reminder of the danger she had invited. When Mrs. Uzo arrived and heard about everything, her face drained of color at the sight of her daughter's teacher lying frail and trembling. "That's my daughter's medication. I told her never to touch it," she gasped, her hand trembling on Lara's arm. Lara blinked, her mind foggy. The truth hit her like a cold wave. Her greed, the same desire that had made her eat from every child's lunch, had backfired. Poison coursed through her veins, not from malice or accident, but from a small girl's carefully measured heart medication. Children began to talk, encouraged by the presence of their parents. "Auntie Lara always eats our lunch," one whispered. Another added, "She said Lagos germs are wicked and she has to taste it." Tommy, finally able to speak through tears, said, "I didn't want to tell anyone. She said we'd be lonely if we did." Mrs. Kemi held her daughter tight, whispering, "It's okay, baby. You're safe now." The headmistress and other teachers listened in shock as parents recounted months of similar stories. Every stolen meal, every false excuse, every frightened whisper in the classroom now painted a complete picture. Lara's reputation, once untouchable, crumbled in silence around her. Meanwhile, Lara's body writhed with pain. The doctors explained that the medication, digoxin, a powerful heart prescription, had entered her system in dangerous amounts. "Miss Lara," one nurse said, "you need to rest. Your organs are under serious strain. You must resign and begin treatment immediately." For the first time in her life, Lara felt powerless. The glamour, the Instagram likes, the admiration, none of it could protect her now. Lying in her hospital bed, she finally confronted her reflection in the window. Pale, fragile, with the edges of her carefully styled life stripped away. She thought of the children she had manipulated, of Tommy's fainting body, of Zara's tears, and the silent cries of every other child whose lunch had vanished. I never meant," she whispered, voice cracking. But words held no weight here. Greed, she realized, had a cost. Outside, the city carried on. Surulere streets buzzed with traffic. Street vendors called out prices for fried yam and suya, and children laughed as they headed home from school. But in the hospital room, silence prevailed. Only the soft beeping of the monitors reminded Lara of her choices. By evening, the school management had been informed. Parents demanded action, and Bright Steps Academy moved quickly to contain the situation. Lara survived the poisoning, but was no longer fit to teach. She submitted her resignation, quietly, head bowed. Her Instagram posts vanished. The colorful, cheerful classroom she once commanded now seemed like a distant memory. The school, chastened and alert, installed CCTV cameras in every classroom. Teachers received child safety training. Parents were assured that no child's welfare would be jeopardized again. Bright Steps Academy had learned a harsh lesson about trust, oversight, and the subtle dangers of unchecked desire. Through it all, Lara lay in her hospital bed, frail and repentant, realizing that the greed which had once filled her with secret delight had left her with nothing but weakness and regret. In a city of bright lights and endless appetite, Miss Lara forgot that enough can be plenty. She took what did not belong to her and paid the price. Greed never fills the stomach. It empties the soul. As children played outside, carrying their lunchboxes safe and whole, the lesson hung in the air. Every mother, every parent, every teacher understood. Some appetites are better left unchecked by conscience, and some pleasures are only bitter when stolen. If you're captivated by this tale, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more modern African folk tales that teach lessons through the heart of Lagos.